bombshell new report just out is rocking the world of women's professional soccer. An independent investigation finding a pattern of rampant abuse and sexual misconduct, and that officials failed to protect players. Here's Ann Thompson.
The excitement of the National Women's Soccer League hid an ugly truth: verbal and emotional abuse and sexual misconduct. Today, U.S. Soccer President Cindy Parlow-Cone called the findings heartbreaking and deeply troubling, and promised to address the recommendations, including publicly identifying individuals disciplined, suspended, or banned. At last being open about a culture of abuse. Ann Thompson, NBC News.
Now, in Afghanistan, the number of people who died in an attack on Friday on an education centre has risen to 53. More than 110 are injured. The UN says casualty figures are likely to rise. Most of the victims are female students. The BBC's South Asia correspondent Yogita Limai reports.
The UN says casualty numbers could rise even further because the explosion took place at a center where hundreds of teenagers had gathered to take a mock test in preparation for university admissions. Eyewitnesses have told the BBC that the suicide bomber ran into the center and detonated an explosive device at the front of the class where female students were seated, separated from male students who were sitting in the benches at the back. And that's why most of those who've been killed are young women and girls. And to just give a context of who these women, who these girls were. So girls are barred from going to secondary schools in most of Afghanistan by the Taliban government. Many of these female students would have been in secondary schools, but because they were unable to go to secondary school, they were taking private tuition, private lessons to continue their studies so that they could prepare for university entrance exams and continue their education in the future. And it's those girls, it's those women whose families were using whatever little means they have in a crumbling economy.
Because security forces have stolen the body of a 16-year-old protester and buried her secretly in a village. That's what sources close to the family of Nikah Shakarami have told the BBC. Well, Nikah went missing for 10 days after protesting in Tehran following the wave of unrest that spread across Iran since 22-year-old Mahsa Amini died last month after being arrested by the so-called morality police.
This was Nikah Shakarami, a typical shy teenager seen here singing karaoke with friends. She joined the protests and was killed a few days before her 17th birthday. Her family told the BBC that the authorities abducted her body and buried her in a village despite her parents' wishes. They were worried about the possibility of her funeral fueling further anger and unrest. Schoolgirls have now joined anti-government protests in Iran. Here, in capital Tehran, they're marching in the streets chanting, "Death to the dictator." The biggest threat for more than a decade to Iran's radical Islamic leadership are now teenagers. Here, in the Kurdish city of Saqqez, schoolgirls are chanting, "Zhen, Jian, Azadi," meaning woman, life, freedom.